When my son's wife looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're nothing but a burden now that you're 60, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I walked upstairs, poured myself a cup of coffee, and smiled. Because what they didn't know was that within 2 weeks, I'd sell the house right out from under them, and leave them stunned. Justice has a funny way of showing up when arrogance gets too loud. And trust me, you won't believe what I did next. Stay until the end, and hit subscribe if you believe respect should never come with an expiration date. When I turned 60, I thought life would finally slow down. I had worked 35 years as a machinist at a factory in Ohio, paid off the mortgage on my modest 3-bedroom house, and saved up a decent 401k. Retirement wasn't luxury, but it was security. I pictured holidays filled with grandkids running in the backyard, cookouts, and me teaching my son Daniel how to fix things around the house, just like my dad once taught me. But reality didn't match the picture in my head. Daniel married young, to a woman named Vanessa. She was sharp, beautiful in that cold, polished way, and always seemed to be sizing me up whenever I walked into the room. From day one, I felt like she was keeping score, who paid for what, who did what, and whether I measured up. Still, I tried to keep the peace. After all, Daniel was my only child. I thought if I bit my tongue and stayed out of their way, things would get better. But instead, the distance grew. Phone calls got shorter, visits less frequent. And when they did come by, Vanessa always found a way to remind me that their life was busy and modern, as if mine was a relic from the past. By 60, I wasn't some feeble old man. I could mow my own lawn, drive myself anywhere, and still lift more than half the guys at the local gym. But Vanessa had a way of making me feel invisible. When family dinners rolled around, she'd cut me off mid-sentence, redirect the conversation, or worse, speak about me in the third person right in front of me. "He probably won't understand, Daniel, it's a tech thing." There were cracks before the storm, and I noticed them. Once, I overheard her complaining about the old-fashioned furniture in my house, saying it looked like a thrift store exploded. Another time, when I offered to babysit their little boy so they could have a night out, she smiled tight-lipped and said, "Thanks, but we don't want him picking up outdated habits." I swallowed those moments, told myself not to overthink. But deep down I knew, she didn't just dislike me. She wanted me erased. Looking back, there were signs foreshadowing the blow that was coming. Daniel stopped asking me about finances. Strange, since I used to guide him through budgeting and car payments. Instead, he seemed evasive. Almost like he and Vanessa had private conversations about me I wasn't meant to hear. I didn't want to admit it then, but the writing was on the wall. My place in their world was shrinking, inch by inch, like wallpaper peeling off until nothing sticks anymore. Still, I had no idea just how cruel her words would be, or how they'd set off a chain reaction that would change everything. I'll never forget the first night I realized just how unwelcome I'd become in my own family's home. It wasn't even subtle anymore. It was loud, sharp, and dripping with disdain. Dinner had just wrapped up. I stood at the sink, rinsing off the plates, something I'd done almost my whole life. I actually liked it, gave me a chance to think, let the noise of the world fade. But that night, I heard them whispering in the dining room. I wasn't supposed to hear, but walls in that old house carried sound like a church bell. "She's too much," my daughter-in-law, Amanda, muttered, her voice flat like she'd rehearsed it. 60 years old and still clinging on. "We can't keep supporting her. This isn't a retirement home." My son, Ryan, didn't defend me. He just sighed. "I know, but what am I supposed to do? She's my mom." Amanda's laugh was short, cold. "She's your responsibility, not mine. I didn't marry you to become her nursemaid. She eats, she lives here rent-free, and she doesn't even work anymore. How long are we going to do this? What about our kids' future? Our mortgage? Our 401k? We can't throw everything away because your mom refuses to let go." Her words hit me like bricks. I wasn't refusing to let go. I'd raised Ryan by myself after his dad walked out. I worked 40 years at the county library, saving every dollar, paying off the mortgage on that house, my house. The same roof that kept him warm when he was sick, the same floor he learned to walk on, the same kitchen where I baked birthday cakes. That house was my life's work. And now I was being painted like some leech. I dried my hands and stepped into the dining room. They didn't notice at first, too busy pulling apart my existence. Amanda had that smug little smirk. Honestly, Ryan, when is she going to realize she's just a burden? It's pathetic. That word, burden, echoed inside my skull. I felt my cheeks burn, but my voice stayed calm. A burden, huh? They both froze. Amanda's face flushed red, caught in her own venom. Ryan stammered, "Mom, we didn't mean." "Save it," I cut him off. My voice was steady, but my chest hurt. I heard enough. The injustice wasn't just the insult. It was that they'd forgotten. Forgotten every late-night shift, every scraped dollar, every sacrifice I made so Ryan could go to college. I skipped vacations, skipped fixing my own teeth at one point, just to make sure his future stayed intact. And here I was at 60, branded as dead weight. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan turn slow circles above me. The hurt cut deep, but deeper still was the realization, I didn't belong here anymore. This wasn't home. This wasn't family, not the way it used to be. The next week, the comments got sharper. Amanda would sigh every time I made coffee in the morning. "Could you not use the last of the creamer again?" She'd snap, as if I was robbing her. Ryan stopped making eye contact, as though shame had turned him into a ghost. The final straw came one Saturday morning. I walked into the living room, holding a basket of laundry, and Amanda was on the phone with her friend. "Yeah, I swear, it's like living with a squatter. She doesn't pay rent, doesn't help with bills, nothing. We're stuck with her. Honestly, I just want her gone." Her words stabbed like knives. I dropped the basket, the clothes spilling onto the carpet. "A squatter?" I asked, my voice cracking but firm. Amanda didn't even flinch. She just crossed her arms. "If the shoe fits." Ryan sat there silent, staring at the floor. That silence told me everything. That was the moment injustice swallowed me whole. It wasn't just about the words. It was the betrayal. The house I built, the family I poured myself into, suddenly I was the outsider, the nuisance, the burden. But deep inside, a fire began to flicker. If they thought I was powerless, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. I thought I had seen the lowest point of my life when Amanda called me a burden. But life has a funny way of showing you that rock bottom is just a stepping stone. One morning, about a week after I moved into that shabby motel room, I got a call from my old neighbor, Mr. Harold. He was in his 70s, still sharp as a tack. He said, "John, I don't know what's going on with your house, but I saw a moving truck outside yesterday." My heart dropped. "A moving truck?" I asked. "Yeah. Looked like your son and his wife were hauling in new furniture. Did you sell them the place?" I froze. No, I hadn't sold the house. Not yet. I still held the deed, the mortgage was long paid off, and my name was the only one on the title. That call made my blood run cold. Amanda and Brian had already started moving into my home, acting like it was theirs. That night, I drove by. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as I parked across the street. And sure enough, through the living room window, the same one I used to decorate with Christmas lights every year, I saw Amanda setting up a brand new sofa, directing Brian where to put it. It was like I didn't even exist. I sat there in my car, invisible to my own family. The house I built with my late wife, the place where I raised my son, was now being treated like Amanda's personal showroom. I clenched the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. And then it hit me, I wasn't powerless. Not yet. The very next morning, I drove to the county recorder's office and requested updated copies of the deed and property records. Sure enough, my name, my ownership, my right. Brian and Amanda hadn't bothered to ask me for anything because they assumed I'd cave, just like I always had. But they had underestimated me. That was the first spark of fire I'd felt in a long time. For the first time in weeks, I stood taller. Later that evening, I got another call. This time, from Brian himself. His voice was awkward, almost rehearsed. "Dad, hey. So, Amanda and I were thinking. You know, it doesn't really make sense for you to live alone anymore. You should just stay at the motel, and we'll handle things at the house. It's better this way." Better for who? I thought. Brian, I said slowly, do you realize I still own that house? It's not yours. Not Amanda's. Mine. There was a pause. Then he chuckled nervously. Come on, Dad. Don't make this difficult. Amanda's got plans. She wants to turn the place into something nice. It's better for everyone. Better for everyone. Except me. I didn't argue. Not right then. I just let the silence hang until Brian finally mumbled something about calling me later and hung up. But that night, I lay awake in my motel bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. My son, the boy I had coached through Little League, the kid I taught how to drive in that very driveway, was siding with a woman who saw me as a burden. And worse, he was ready to throw me out of my own home. That's when I decided I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to flip the entire situation on its head. Amanda thought she was clever, moving in behind my back. Brian thought I'd just roll over like some old dog too tired to bark. But they had no idea that I had already started planning my move. And it wouldn't just be about the house. It would be about teaching them both what happens when you try to erase someone who built everything you're standing on. For the first time in months, I fell asleep with a smile on my face. Because I knew something they didn't, the game had just changed. I wish I could tell you that everything started with that one Christmas dinner fight. But the truth is, the seeds of this disaster had been planted years earlier. And looking back now, it's almost painful how many red flags I ignored, how many little slights I brushed under the rug because I was desperate to keep my family together. See, the truth about me is that I wasn't always the strong, take-no-nonsense man you're hearing now. I used to be that guy who let everyone else's needs come before his own. I was the peacemaker, the fixer, the one patching up holes while quietly drowning inside. When my wife, Margaret, passed away 10 years ago, I felt like someone had ripped the foundation out from under me. 40 years of marriage, gone in a heartbeat. She had cancer, and I sat by her side through every chemo session, every late-night scare, every whispered goodbye. When she passed, I felt like half of me went with her. That's when my son, Brian, stepped in. Or at least, I thought he did. He said, Dad, you shouldn't be alone. Come live with us. We'll take care of you. And at first, I thought it was love talking. I thought, wow, I raised a good man. He's looking out for his old man. But here's the truth that I didn't want to see at the time. It wasn't Brian's idea. It was Jessica's, his wife. She painted it like charity, like they were giving me a gift by letting me stay in my own house. Wait, let me explain. See, Margaret and I had a deal before she passed. We put our home into a living trust with me as trustee. That meant technically, the house was still mine to control until I died. But Jessica, she was smart calculating. She convinced Brian that moving me in with them was temporary, and that I should just sign over certain responsibilities, like the mortgage and insurance, to make things easier. Easier for who? Not me. I didn't see it then, but slowly, little pieces of my independence started vanishing. I wasn't allowed to cook in my own kitchen anymore because Jessica said I left too much mess. She took over the finances, saying, You don't need to stress over bills, Dad. I'll handle it. She even started controlling my doctor's appointments, acting like I was some child who couldn't be trusted to make my own decisions. And Brian, my son, he just went along with it. Maybe because he wanted peace, or maybe because Jessica was the one really running the show. But the biggest betrayal came 2 years ago. I overheard Jessica on the phone with her friend. She laughed and said, Oh, don't worry. Once the house is officially ours, we'll finally renovate it and get rid of his ugly furniture. Honestly, the man's like dead weight just waiting to happen. Dead weight. That's what she called me. I remember sitting in my bedroom that night, staring at the photo of Margaret on my nightstand, whispering, Did we raise Brian wrong? Is this really how it ends? But I didn't fight back, not then. Because I was scared. Scared of losing the only family I had left. Scared that if I pushed too hard, they'd push me right out of their lives completely. And at 60, when your wife's gone, your friends are scattered, and your health isn't what it used to be, the thought of being alone feels like a death sentence. So I kept quiet. I endured the little humiliations, being told I was forgetful when I wasn't, being excluded from family photos, being called extra baggage when they thought I couldn't hear. But here's the part one never told anyone: I wasn't as helpless as they thought. Back when Margaret and I set up the living trust, we also put away some money. Smart investments, savings, retirement accounts. And unlike the house, those accounts were in my name only. Jessica never knew about them. Brian didn't even know the full extent. And over the years, while they were busy treating me like a burden, that money quietly grew. I'd meet with my financial advisor, Tom, on the sly. We'd grab coffee at a diner downtown, go over the numbers, and he'd remind me, "You're fine, John. You've got more than enough to live independently if you ever need to." For years, I didn't act. But hearing Jessica call me a burden at Christmas, that was the final straw. That was the slap I needed to wake up. Because Margaret always used to say, "Don't you ever let anyone make you small, John. Not even family. Especially not family." And in that moment, her voice came roaring back into my head. I realized I had been living under their roof, under their rules, when in reality, I had the power to walk away all along. They just didn't know it. And that's when it hit me: maybe it was time to stop being the peacemaker. Maybe it was time to remind my son and his wife exactly who I was. When I walked out of that courtroom, I swear, the air felt lighter. For the first time in months, I wasn't carrying the weight of humiliation on my back. I was carrying justice. My son and his wife had just been slapped with the news they weren't inheriting my house, my savings, or a single cent of my retirement accounts. The looks on their faces, white as chalk, mouths twitching like they'd just bitten into a lemon, were worth every ounce of pain I'd gone through. But here's the kicker: I didn't stop there. See, when you've been treated like garbage by the people you raised and sacrificed for, you start to look at life differently. I didn't want to just win legally. I wanted to rebuild. Reclaim. Reinvent myself. I went home, or rather, I went back to the small apartment I'd rented after selling my house, and I sat down with a glass of red wine. The cheap kind, but it tasted like freedom. I opened my laptop and looked at the retirement accounts I had spent decades growing. My 401k, my IRA, the savings bonds tucked away. For so long, I'd thought about them as something I'd leave for my son. But now, they were mine. And at 60, I wasn't dead yet. The first step of my reversal was about reclaiming independence. I signed up for a travel group for retirees, something I never thought I'd do. They were heading to Arizona to hike parts of the Grand Canyon, and I thought, why not? My doctor cleared me, and I packed my bags. That trip changed everything. Hiking down those steep red trails, feeling the burn in my legs, breathing in the desert air, it reminded me I was still alive. Not a burden. Not a leftover piece of someone else's life. I was my own person again. And the people I met? Incredible. Widows, widowers, divorced folks, even a couple of spry 70-year-olds who could outhike kids half their age. I laughed more in that 1 week than I had in years. For the first time, I wasn't defined by my role as dad or grandpa or unwanted guest. I was just me. Meanwhile, back home, the fallout was brutal for them. My son and his wife had been bragging to friends about the big inheritance they'd someday get. Turns out, they'd even taken out a second mortgage on their house, banking on me leaving them my place. When the news spread that I'd sold everything and secured my assets in a trust that benefited me and a local charity, their social circle turned cold. Funny thing about greed, it shows. And once people saw their true colors, they didn't look at them the same way anymore. One afternoon, I got a call. It was my son. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. "Dad," he started, voice shaky, we didn't know it would go this far." "This far?" I said. "You called me useless. You let your wife throw me out of my own home. And now you're worried because people finally see who you are." He sighed. We could really use some help. Things are tight right now." I laughed. Actually laughed. "You want help? You had my help for 30 years. I gave you college, I helped with your first mortgage, I babysat your kids while you worked late. And when I needed a roof over my head, you called me a burden." Silence. Then he muttered, "So that's it? You're just cutting me out." I took a breath. It hurt to say, but it was the truth. Yes. That's it. Actions have consequences, son. And you made your choice. He hung up on me, and for once, the sound of that dead line didn't sting. It felt like closure. But the reversal wasn't just about shutting a door. It was about opening new ones. I started volunteering at a local community center, helping teenagers with job applications and interview prep. Some of those kids reminded me of my son when he was young, hopeful, nervous, full of potential. The difference was, these kids actually listened. They respected me. They valued the stories I told about hard work and resilience. And slowly, I built a new kind of family. A chosen family. People who didn't share my blood, but shared respect. People who saw me not as a burden, but as a mentor, a friend, even a role model. The biggest twist came one Sunday. I was at the community center, helping a girl fill out her FAFSA forms for college, when a woman walked in with a tray of cookies for the volunteers. She was in her late 50s, silver hair tied back, a warm smile that instantly softened the room. Her name was Linda. She'd lost her husband 2 years earlier and had been volunteering ever since. We got to talking, then laughing, then swapping stories. She told me how her kids treated her like gold, always checking in, always making sure she knew her worth. I admitted mine had done the opposite. She patted my hand and said, "Their loss. Truly. Some kids just don't see the value in what they've been given." I felt something shift inside me that day. Hope. Real hope. Because the truth is, the best reversal isn't just proving your enemies wrong, it's proving yourself right. Proving that your life doesn't end because someone decided you weren't valuable. And standing there, with Linda's cookies melting in my mouth and kids buzzing around me with plans for their futures, I realized, I was never a burden. I was a blessing they couldn't recognize. And now, I was finally free to live like it. When the gavel slammed, I swear it sounded like thunder. The judge's ruling was final. The house was legally mine to do with as I pleased, and the power of attorney Michael had been tricked into signing by Hannah was void due to fraud. Hannah's smug smile evaporated right there in the courtroom. She looked like a balloon that had just lost all its air. Michael sat slouched beside her, his eyes darting between me and the floor. He didn't look so tough anymore. For once, I wasn't the one shrinking in shame. They were. The courtroom emptied slowly, but I stayed planted in my seat, letting the reality wash over me. I had fought for myself, for my dignity, my independence, and my future. And I had won. Walking out into the sunshine, my lawyer clapped me on the back. "You did good, Linda. Real good," he said. I smiled for the first time in months, a real smile. "I guess 60 isn't the age where life is over, huh?" "Not even close," he said. And he was right. The very next week, I listed the house. Hannah and Michael had been assuming they'd inherit it, or worse, that they'd move in for free once I was too old to manage. Wrong. A young family bought it within a month. Watching their kids run through the front yard during the open house felt like the universe's way of telling me, this chapter is over. You're free. I used the money to buy myself a cozy condo downtown. No stairs, no leaky roof, no endless lawn work, just peace. I decorated it how I wanted. My photos on the walls. My books stacked high. My music playing loud without anyone rolling their eyes. For the first time in years, I woke up every morning without walking on eggshells. Hannah tried reaching out once after the sale. She left me a voicemail dripping with fake sweetness. "Linda, I think we just got off on the wrong foot. Family should stick together." I laughed out loud when I heard it. Family? She called me a burden at my own dinner table. She schemed behind my back to cut me out of my own life. Family doesn't do that. So, I blocked her number. Michael showed up at my door one evening. He looked older than me, stress etched deep into his face. He stammered something about being sorry, about Hannah pushing him. "Mom, I was scared of losing her," he said. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "And you lost me instead." Then I shut the door. It wasn't easy. I cried after that, I won't lie. But it was a different kind of cry. Not helpless tears, not the tears of someone being beaten down. These were tears of release. Tears of finally choosing myself. Now I've got friends in the condo building. We have Friday night wine tastings in the lounge. I joined a yoga class. I even started dating again, something I hadn't thought about in decades. Turns out, men in their 60s can be just as charming as the ones in their 30s, except they actually know how to listen. The best part? I'm not afraid of being a burden anymore. I handle my bills. I know my rights. I set up my will the right way, with an attorney I trust. Everything is crystal clear. No manipulative daughter-in-law is going to worm her way into my legacy ever again. Sometimes people ask me if I regret walking away from Michael. He's my son, after all. Blood. But here's the thing, respect is a two-way street. He chose her over me, again and again. I gave birth to him, raised him, sacrificed for him, and he let me be humiliated in my own home. I don't regret choosing myself. Not for a second. The last time I saw Hannah was at the grocery store. She avoided my eyes, pushing her cart fast like she couldn't get away quick enough. And you know what? That felt like justice. She was the one shrinking now, not me. So, here I am. 60 years old. Not a burden. Not forgotten. Not weak. I am free. I am strong. And I am living life on my terms. And if anyone out there is sitting at home thinking you're too old to start over, let me tell you something, you're not. You are never too old to protect your dignity, to reclaim your voice, and to build a life that makes you proud. Because sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't yelling or fighting, or even suing. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply walking away, holding your head high, and living so well that the people who doubted you have no choice but to sit back and watch. And trust me, watching them squirm? That's the cherry on top. You know what this story really taught me? That sometimes the hardest betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people sitting at your own dinner table. And when it does, you've got two choices: let it crush you, or let it set you free. In America, we're taught to value family, loyalty, tradition. And that's beautiful, until loyalty becomes a leash. Because here's the truth nobody likes to say out loud: just because someone is family doesn't mean they get a free pass to disrespect you. Blood might connect us, but respect is what makes us family. I spent years believing I had to shrink myself, stay quiet, and just be grateful for whatever scraps of kindness my son and his wife handed me. But the moment they called me a burden, it was like a switch flipped inside me. I realized I wasn't just fighting for a house. I was fighting for my dignity, my future, and my right to be treated like a human being. And you know what? That fight was worth every sleepless night, every tear, every ounce of courage I had to dig up from the bottom of my soul. Because at the end of it, I came out standing taller than ever. This isn't just about me. It's about every single person out there who's been made to feel small in their own home, in their own family, or even in their own skin. If someone makes you feel like a burden, remember this: you are not the problem. Their lack of respect is. Life after 60 isn't about fading away. It's about rewriting your story on your terms. It's about taking that second chance, even if it scares you, and proving to yourself that independence is the opposite of loneliness. It's freedom. So here's the lesson I want you to carry with you: your worth doesn't come from your children, your spouse, or anyone else's opinion. Your worth comes from how you choose to stand up for yourself when life pushes you down. And if you ever doubt that, just remember, sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all. It's living so boldly that the people who tried to break you can't stand to watch you rise. Backhand index pointing right. If this story hit home for you, don't forget to subscribe. More stories of justice, survival, and sweet revenge are waiting for you here.